Okay, Chair, when you're ready, we're now streaming live on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Debbie. Good morning and welcome to East Devon District Council's Asset Management Forum on Monday, the 17th of June 2024 at 9:30 a.m. I'm your Chair, Councillor Paul Hayward. I'd also like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live stream service. May I respectfully remind members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting. We also reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who the message by the meeting by whatever means. Please turn off any telephone devices or put them on silent. Thank you. We'll now start the meeting by doing a roll call of forum members here present, and I'll pass over to DSO Debbie Meakin to do that for us.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'll start with yourself, please, Chair. Councillor Hayward.
I'm present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott has given his apologies. Councillor Hawkins, please.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Young, I don't see on the call, so I'll move on to Councillor Olive, please.
Present.
Thank you. I can confirm that you are quorate, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Debbie. So we go straight on to agenda item 1, the notes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 4th of March 2024. That's within your agenda pack, pages 3 to 6. If anyone has any comment on these notes, could you please raise your electronic hand? And if I see no hands raised, I'll take that as an indication that you all agree the notes of that meeting. And I can see no hands raised from forum members here present. So we will take those as read. Thank you very much indeed, Debbie.
Thank you, Chair.
Agenda item 2, apologies. We've had the apologies from Councillor Arnott, and of course we are missing Councillor Young, but he may arrive at some point in the meeting. So agenda item 3, declarations of interest. If any councillor has a declaration to make, I'll ask you to raise your electronic hand. So this also applies to members, thank you, Nick, I've seen that, to members who are not on the Asset Management Forum, but are here present today. We have apologies from Councillor Hookway. To you first, Nick.
Just a simple declaration, really. Chair, agenda item 8, I'm a member of Exmouth Town Council. So anything related to Exmouth, that needs to be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Ian, over to you.
I'm a member of Sidmouth Town Council for anything that comes up. And again, there are a couple of things.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Heath, declarations are from the member, but I know you are, I believe, a member of, are you a member of Beer Parish Council? Oh, you're muted, John.
Yes, Paul. Yeah, I'm a member of Beer Parish Council.
Lovely, thank you. I hope you don't mind me giving you a gentle nudge there, but just for the purposes of the minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Ollie, over to you.
Same as Nick, agenda item 8, member of Exmouth Town Council.
Lovely, thank you.
And any other mention of Exmouth.
Thank you. For my own part, I'll declare an effects NRI for any items that come up later in the meeting, primarily, I guess, in relation to agenda item 8, potentially for 10, as I'm an employed officer of Axminster Town Council. But that will be an effects NRI. Thank you, Debbie. So I can't see any more here. So we now move on to agenda item 4, public speaking. And I'm advised there are no members of the public registered to speak, and I can't see members of the public sort of here on the Zoom meeting. So are there any members outside of the forum who would wish to speak at this point, or do you want to hold your fire till the meeting begins? Can't see anyone, so that's fine, thank you. We move on to agenda item 5, matters of urgency, and I don't believe there are any. Agenda item 6, which is confidential exempt items, and there are no items which officers have recommended should be dealt with in this way. So without further ado, we go straight to agenda item 7, which is the community asset transfer proposal, land at Jubilee Gardens, Jubilee Hardstanding, including the play park and beach court car park, pages 7 to 19 of your agenda pack. And I'll ask, now I have Melanie Whitehead to speak here, but I can't see, is Melanie here? Oh yes, there you are, Melanie. Hello, good morning, Melanie. Over to you.
Sorry, I was just unmuting. I think Rob's actually presenting this one.
Yeah, I'll do it. but I am here if there's any questions.
No problem. Thank you very much indeed, Melanie. Sorry about
Yeah.
that, Rob. Over to you.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So, morning, everybody. This item, basically, the purpose of the report is to advise AMF of the application, the consultation process so far, and to seek the views of AMF as part of the ongoing consultation before a recommendation is then taken forward. So, just as a bit of background, this is an application submitted by Bay Parish Council under the relatively new community asset transfer process. The application relates to areas of land at Jubilee Hardstanding, Jubilee Gardens, and the Beach Court car park in Beer. If you look in the report, you can see those all mapped out as well. And under the process, the first stage is that the expression of interest is submitted by the applicants, and there's then a consultation phase which is undertaken. Now, at the moment, that consultation has been with our SLT members, our ward member, our colleagues in street scene, parking and engineers, and this is the part of the process where we come to AMF to seek members' views on the proposal. So as you see, in terms of a sort of a recommendation, obviously the next steps will be that the report is prepared to the portfolio holder, and that will obviously take into account the views of members coming out of this meeting, as well as the views that have already been put forward as part of the consultation process. So the three sites you've got are the Jubilee Hardstanding and Play Area, which is detailed at 3.1 number 1. It's a hardstanding area and a play area, sort of on the cliff top at Beer, for those who are familiar with the site. There's the Jubilee Gardens, which is kind of up above the hardstanding area, and then there's the small car park, which is just off 4th Street in the middle of Beer. So again, for people who are reasonably familiar with Beer, you probably have seen it or know of it. The parish council have submitted the application seeking to take a transfer of the sites for free or at minimal cost. The section 4 of the report sort of outlines the consultation so far. So that consultation has been with officers in sort of street scene, parking, engineering, and you'll see from that the initial sort of cost side of it suggests that on a day-to-day basis, the loss of income from the car park and the day-to-day sort of maintenance costs that we have largely balance each other out. Some of the other comments within here have raised concerns about the liability for the cliffs. So who would ultimately be responsible for that? Obviously, you've got land on top of a cliff. Who's responsible for the cliff which holds up that land on top, and how do you deal with that sort of ongoing responsibility? There's other comments regarding the land around the public toilets, which they're a category A toilet as part of the public toilets programme. So there's obviously plans to refurbish those, so we'd need land around there to be able to undertake that work, but also to potentially have alternative provision while those works are underway. And then there's comments regarding the existing sort of the RNLI sort of lease up there and other agreements, as well as sort of the general ongoing maintenance of shelters and things like that. There's also the final comment was just in terms of the actual legal costs in terms of the transfer. So as I said, the next steps would be that that we take into account views of members as well as the officer ones, and then sort of pull together a report which Tim would then take forward for a decision from the portfolio holder, which basically would either seek a detailed business case from the parish council or not. It's ultimately the position. So yeah, I think from that it'd be interesting to see what views members have on the proposal.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Rob. Can I bring in Andrew? Andrew, would you be happy to, Andrew Hancock? give us some sort of insight as to how your department is affected or might be affected by this?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I suppose I should start off by saying we're broadly in support of this asset transfer, and we've been working with Tim's department for a number of years on the beer pilot that went beforehand. So there's a lot of officer time and information and knowledge that has gone into the wider beer transfer ahead of this latest ask. In the report or in the proposal from Beer Parish Council, it talks about the neglect of the site. And it's important, I think, for the forum to note that we haven't neglected it as such, because I think that infers a standard of maintenance that has not been met. What we have had there is since 2009, due to austerity, we've had to reduce the maintenance that we have resources for in that site. And so the standard of maintenance has not met what some members in Beer Parish Council would like to see. But it's not neglect, because we haven't failed to meet our maintenance schedule, if that makes sense. But I think that point is important to raise because it speaks to this transfer, doesn't it? If Beer Parish Council want to invest more resources to maintain the site at a higher standard, then that's laudable and something we should support. There's a few things just to note from Street Scene's perspective and the detail, I suppose, that would come up in the business plan should we take this forwards. So in those semi-wilded woodland areas now, we need to think about the biodiversity. We need to involve our district ecologist in terms of bat forage and roosts associated with the Beer Quarry Caves designation there. We've got some health and safety issues with banks and the cliff edge that Beer Parish Council in maintaining would need to set out their risk assessments in terms of how they would address that. You can't just put staff in close proximity to the cliff edge without appropriate equipment and training. As Rob's already highlighted, there's the retaining walls and the cliffs to consider. I think that point might have been conceded in the previous beer pilot work, and it might be right. Members might feel it's right that East Devon retains that responsibility and that liability, but it's just worth highlighting that if we transfer the asset and retain that higher maintenance costs there, we need to go in eyes open to that. And then the final two areas I just wanted to highlight were the cost. So we've got an estimate of about 15,000 annually for our grounds maintenance costs there. But the team that service beer also service parts of the Axe Valley and Seaton. So we can't just we can't deliver that saving for East Devon directly because it's tied up in a team that services elsewhere. So whilst technically that maintenance cost is lost, East Devon District Council still retains that salary cost for the team. Now there's an issue I've been talking to Andy Wood about in terms of demand and growth and capacity within the team. So we might be able to absorb that and use that to pick up demand growth elsewhere, but it doesn't provide us with a net saving in that regard. And the final point is around events, and the expression of interest from the Parish Council touches on this, both within the Jubilee and Charlie's Yard, commercial and community events. We've got an agreement at the moment with Beers Parish Council whereby they book the events, but our events team do the administration of it to check that they're safe and administered correctly. And if we move forward to this, we'll need to have an SLA in that regard so that both parties are clear on their responsibilities and liabilities, so that any events and any commercial activities are controlled appropriately. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much indeed, Andy, for that. Appreciate that. If I may now, John, can I bring you in as both ward member and the representative of Beer Parish Council to give us effectively the other side of the equation? That'd be very helpful if you can.
Yeah, certainly, Paul. Well, firstly, these 8 outcomes, consultation with relevant council services. The Parish Council have asked me to hold off on whether to adopt or not adopt them, so they can consider the outcomes of the consultation with relevant, council services. However, I have been advised of some things, and if we go through each point, I don't think it'll take too long. This is the provisional view of the Parish Council. So it's not the set view, it's not the confirmed view, but the provisional view. And first, number 1, Beach Court Car Park. The proposal is to transfer Beach Court Car Park to the Parish Council. And we understand that EDDC will continue to manage this car park for which the parish council will pay EDDC's costs. Hence, including the net income figures, the parish council will be responsible for signs, lines, surfacing, boundary repairs, etc. And this will estimate to generate the parish council £12,000 in year one. Going on to point 3, the cost of maintenance and loss of car park income. For avoidance of doubt, the parish council have asked me to raise the following. The beach. So due to complexities around the day-to-day management and because of regularisation of agreements being needed, but this does generate commercial income. The parish council are at this stage not prepared to accept this liability, but we need to be clear whether we're talking about the cliff faces or the land on the Jubilee going down to the edge of the cliff, because that is a dichotomy there that needs to be looked at. This is a concern to EDDC and has been worked through at length and has now been accepted by officers as part of this wider asset transfer. We obviously, in terms of Beach Court car park, that's the smallest of the 3 car parks. The major car park generation is Central Car Park behind the Dolphin and Beer Head car park. And the prerequisites for transfer, that's under number 4. If the Jubilee Gardens and play area are to transfer, assets to be transferred must be in a serviceable condition with no serious outstanding defects. And known health and safety issues will be dealt with by EDDC prior to handover at the cost of the council. This might be by undertaking works prior to transfer or attaching a financial sum for the parish council to implement, but it has not been made clear that this will be a large sum or not, and will not allow for works identified as needed in the short-term future, something which previously has been requested by the parish council. There is therefore a further less quantifiable saving to EDDC. In essence, if some building components are broken, it will be repaired, but anything that is dated or in a poor condition but functioning adequately will not. I don't think there's an issue about the toilets, that's point 5. And number 6, the RNLI concession and maintenance of the shelters. The memorial play area is subject to a way leave to southwest water of the pumping station below. And the Jubilee Gardens access hard standing viewpoint includes income received currently of £700 per annum from the RNLI. And the Jubilee Gardens, but for the avoidance of doubt, the cliff is excluded. And finally, number 8, the opening up of the Jubilee Gardens. Repair, maintenance and renewal of the fencing at the top of the cliff and along the remaining boundaries will be the responsibility of Beer Parish Council, plus repair and maintenance of the railings from lookout areas, including the beach. The thing is, I just add really that obviously East Devon owns the beach, and that's quite a considerable revenue generator from rents for the 3 cafes and for the boat owners. So I think that's, I don't think, considering climate change and the way that the cliff faces would be considered, to be relevant at this stage to the parish council. But I can't speak fully on their behalf. I'm just giving you the initial provisional views because we have to go back and obviously we have to discuss these consultations. Does that help?
It does, John. Thank you very much indeed. Before I open it out to members, from my own perspective, obviously as a clerk to a council, I would, if I were advising my members, I'd be in a similar situation, I no doubt, to your clerk, John, and giving sort of advice as best as it's worth on the liabilities and the future prospects for the site. But obviously, with my other hat on in this economy and assets role, I have to obviously consider it from East Devon District Council's perspective too. So it's quite a challenge for me personally. So before I take it out to members, Tim, you wanted to come in on this?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Morning, members. Just want to come back on a couple of points, if that's okay. So, various references have been made to the cliff and the condition of the cliff, and who would or would not be responsible for the cliff. Whilst the focus has been on the financial risks that go with being responsible for the cliff, I think it's also just worth flagging the sort of the operational, practical implications as well. Whilst the District Council own Jubilee, it is within our gift to close sections off if they become unsafe due to cliff failure. I think we just need to be very mindful, and there are ways around this, so I'm not suggesting there aren't, but we just need to be very mindful if we were to go ahead with the transfer and retain responsibility for the cliffs, but there would need to be some shared working with the parish council over what would happen if, for example, the cliff did become unsafe and parts of Jubilee, particularly the hard standing area, had to be taken out of use. The second item I just wanted to come in on quickly, please, is the conditionate transfer. Councillor Heath, I think a lot of the wording that the parish council have given you, I think probably came from the wording that we'd given them in relation to the toilet building. So it was specific really to the toilet building, regarding it being in a serviceable condition, etc., etc. So I think in terms of the conditionate transfer, if this were to go ahead, we just need to obviously look at it on the basis of the types of assets being transferred and what is reasonable to both parties. But I think the wording you used was probably quite specific to the toilets, which obviously aren't included at this stage. And thank you, Chair. I think they were just the two bits I just wanted to come back in on just to clarify, really. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. I'm just, before we go into forum discussion from the forum members here, are there any members of council present who'd like to make a contribution? Ian, love to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there seems to be almost a fear from both sides about taking this on for various responsibilities and everything. Have you looked at a long-term lease or a full repairing, like you would in the commercial sector, do a lease that at the end of the day gives Beer Parish Council the control that it wants, that they can show how they want to look after it, how they can do it without actually causing all the legal wrangling obligations, trying to get it written down in the right way of should something go wrong with something in the future. Now, at the end of the day, a smaller parish council will no doubt be able to perhaps get better value for money because they don't have the overheads that Andrew has with his team, with all the computer backs up and the back office people that they've got, and at the end of the day might be able to deliver something better and may be able to squeeze a little bit more money out of it. But if you set a lease for whatever money you think you're going to lose as the rate that they would pay, you're talking about sort of a maximum of making £5,000 out of this. I just think that you could charge them a small lease every year to do this, put them on it. They could have a get out clause. You could have a get out clause, and it would be a lot easier to write something up without going into the who's responsible for what and should the land collapse on that land. It's a minefield legally that you're saying you're going to be tied up in. It's going to cost you a fortune, whereas a lease would be an awful lot easier to write. It can be adapted, it can be changed to suit the situation, but it would give Beer Council the control that it wants to see if they can deliver things better, which again would make more sense for East Devon, because of course that actually is part of our remit, is to improve the lives of everyone, including the people in Beer.
Thank you, Ian. I suppose that proposal it goes against the principle of what we're discussing, which is an asset transfer proposal based on a policy. But again, do any officers want to respond? John, do you want to come back on that sort of suggestion, comment from Councillor Barlow?
Well, I think Ian's comments have some merit, but I can't see how it would work in principle. But it could certainly, depending on what the officer's advice is, it could go before the parish council as a proposal. But we need to be governed by what is realistic and what is achievable here. And I'm a little bit dubious as to, I see that what Ian is saying, but I'm dubious as to whether that will actually work, in fact. And I think just to say that obviously the income from Beach Court car park balances out the outgoings on maintaining the Jubilee Gardens. I just want to say one more thing, because I don't want to monopolise this meeting at all, actually. But the Jubilee Gardens is Beers jewel in the crown, and it's very, very important for tourism because people do. It is a focal point of the village, and I understand from what Andrew is saying the challenges in maintaining it, but you can't have half a haircut. You either have to somehow deal with those slopes, the lower slopes in particular, and have a balanced rewilding process. So the top part of the Jubilee, because it's so big, can be rewilded with wildflower meadows, but the lower part, which overlooks the Jubilee hard standing, particularly for events, does need to be maintained. And I understand those slopes are a serious issue regarding health and safety, but is not unachievable for, if you like, the volunteers from Beer Parish Council, but is less achievable, I would suggest, from the officers who have to comply with their health and safety regs. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, John. For any members who haven't been to the site, I would heartily recommend you go, one, because it's just a beautiful, beautiful vista out across the sea. It's utterly gorgeous. I was fortunate to go, be taken around by John's predecessor, the previous ward member. And yes, Andrew and Rob have made valid points. It's a very challenging site. I think by the time I climbed all the way to the top of it and gone around the sort of the back and through the den, I needed an ice cream and a bag of chips by the time I finished. Andrew, over to you.
Sorry, Chair. Just briefly to come back on Councillor Heath's point, and I understand exactly where he's coming from. And if you've got more money and resources, yes, it's not beyond the wit of man to get those areas cut. We're limited with the resources we have and the equipment we have. Point of note for us, if we transfer this asset to Beer Parish Council, is Beer Parish Council will have the same health and safety liabilities as we have for those volunteers. So you can't shirk those responsibilities or ignore them. They do need to be addressed through risk assessments. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I'd like to. I can't speak for, but I'd like to speak for the clerk of the parish council, who would be well aware of that. But it's a point well made, Andrew. Thank you very much indeed. I'll now bring it back inside forum members for those who are present. We have some recommendations, obviously 1, 2, 3, but members of the forum, thoughts on this? Generally in favour? Not? What's your views? I'd like to be very grateful to hear from you. Who wants to go first? You've got a smile on your face, Sam. I can see you want to say something. Go on, go for it.
No, sorry, I was struggling with the IT here. At the moment, it seems to be just do we want to take it on to the next step rather than actually making a decision today. I think there's been enough support on both sides to warrant actually there is something here to go further. Obviously, there's some bits we need to bottom out, but that's the point of a business case. So I think, yeah, let's support it, take it forward, get the business case, work out all those niggly points around the different issues and see if actually we can get something out to the community to control how they want to control it rather than how we can afford to control it, which aren't necessarily the same thing.
Thank you, Sam. Which in essence is the very principle of why we created the CAT proposal in the first place. It's about, community ownership. Todd, do you want to come in with anything? Oh, I saw you there a minute ago. Are you having some IT issues? Yes. Well, bear with us, everyone. I think Todd may be turning it off and turning it on again. Richard, while we're waiting for Todd, do you want to come in?
Yeah, it was just I haven't visited the site, but I do know of it, and I was listening to the bit about street scene not realising the full saving by just chopping off one bit because you can't get to the other areas, and that still needs to be serviced. does this leave space to be more ambitious with the transfer in terms of other assets that could be transferred over to community ownership and therefore achieve those savings for street scene? So there was some other things that they weren't going down to Beer to sort out that could be done locally as well.
You mean sort of like an opportunity cost of the staff aren't working there, they can be put elsewhere for greater gain?
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate always to say anything about toilets, but if we as EDDC, that the toilets are still sitting with EDDC whilst the rest is being transferred, I don't. I always hesitate to get involved in what's happening with the toilets. But things like the toilets, is there a thing which could give more benefits to both sides by having control of all things rather than a bit of both? And are there more opportunities within that? And do we leave the door open for more opportunities as part of this process ongoing? So we're not making a decision today, but exploring other things which maybe could be added in.
Thank you for that, Richard. I mean, I can see Andrew and Tim want to come back. I know from previous meetings of this forum, this inevitably comes up because there is this belief that, by not cutting something, you save the money. You don't, as Andrew has said, but the staff are still employed. They've still got to have PPE, vehicles, pension contributions. The opportunity saving comes from they can be utilised elsewhere. They can bolster other teams. They can do other things. You can cut more or cut longer. But yeah, there is no cash saving. And in this case, it's a cash loss because we're no longer getting the revenue for the car park. But that's why the CAT was created, to look at these wider issues. It's not just about pounds and pence. It's a more, dare I say, holistic approach. But and Andrew, do you want to come back on Councillor Jeffrey's point?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I mean the short answer is yes. We can do this given enough time. And the previous beer pilot did look at a greater red line of asset transfer, but even then we still had the same issue in that day one we've got those employment costs. So we need a phasing where we pass over those services and responsibilities. And in the previous beer asset transfer, we were looking at a 5-year period, whereby each year we would have a sort of agreed schedule of reduction of what East Devon maintained and did and what Beer Parish Council took up. So that's something we could do in a wider transfer or within this transfer. And then I mentioned earlier in the meeting that we've also got demand growth elsewhere. We've got growing property numbers, growing tourism, and that's putting more pressure on the teams. So I know that at some point in the near future, I'm going to have to bring an additional resources paper to council. And so we can reutilise the saving, whilst it's not a full FTE, elsewhere in the Seaton and Axe Valley area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Tim?
Thank you, Chair. Just two things. Firstly, so reference has been made about something bigger. Could this be something bigger? Well, of course, and I think it's just worth flagging to members, because I'm conscious that as officers, Andrew and I know an awful lot around the former beer pilot proposals, but probably as members you're relatively unfamiliar with it. But what I would say is that, so historically we had for a number of years been exploring quite a significant asset transfer across beer, consisting of the sites we're talking about today, but also many others that were much more complex. So in terms of a sort of a potential journey starting somewhere and then given the opportunity, if it works for the parish council, to take on other assets, from an officer perspective, this does seem in terms of types of assets, it does seem a good opportunity to start. And it's really where, if the parish council were to then find successes through this asset transfer, if that's the route we go down, and took on other assets within the town, I think that's when it could really sort of have more sort of an impact in terms of EDDC for the reasons Andrew has just explained. And then the second point, if I could just pick up, please, is if we look specifically at recommendation 1, it is that AMF notes the report and offers its thoughts on the application at the meeting as part of the consultation process. So that's really, really key. So just to be clear to everyone, The consultation process is well advanced. The responses to the consultation are included within the report, but the debate at today's meeting is part of that consultation and will then inform that officer recommendation to Councillor Hayward as portfolio holder. So I'm really keen, if there are specific thoughts that want to be put forward and formally noted from this meeting, that we do so, and then we can factor it all into the bigger equation. And in particular on that point, picking up on Councillor Barlow's suggestion regarding a lease, is that, I suppose, a question to the forum, is that something that the forum would like officers to consider as part of this consultation stage, along with any other thoughts?
Thank you, Tim. Todd, just before I come to you, I'm glad I've got you back on the screen. I'm just going to ask Councillor Heath just to just pop in again, and then I'll come to you, Todd.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. The original asset transfer by my predecessor and by the previous iteration of Be a Parish Council was to take on a much bigger portfolio, as Tim is well aware of. We've whittled it down subsequently to 3, which you're well aware of through this consultation document, and that's Beach Court Car Park, the Jubilee Hard Standing, which includes the RNLI hut and stuff like that, and the play park, and the Jubilee Gardens. And I think that is where we're coming in from. And obviously the income from the Beach Court Car Park will balance the Jubilee, the outcomes or the maintenance and upkeep of the Jubilee Standing and the Jubilee Gardens. We've looked at the toilets, and I don't think that the revenue generation, even if we charge for it, would balance up with the maintenance costs. It's not a great deal in it, but I think we would be quite happy in principle for the toilets to remain under the auspices of EDDC. Kind of makes sense, but they are due to be upgraded next year, which I think officers know about, and that will obviously make a difference in terms of the lowering. It should be more efficient to maintain them, and also the cost should be more realistic as well. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. Todd. Oh, sorry, Todd. Ian, can you be again just a brief?
Yeah, very briefly, just about leases, just in case, again, I don't want John or anyone to think this is a short-term way to get out of it. You can do leases for whatever length of time you want with get-out clauses on whichever side to protect the parties. So, you know, some of them are called flying freeholds. So it's almost exactly the same for what you get. And again, I would certainly look at the toilets if I was given the chance about it. Especially if they give you the money that they're about to spend on them, John. But anyway, that's up to you.
Thank you, Ian. So, Todd, I'll come back to you. Oh, we can't hear you, Todd. You're unmuted.
What about now?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay. There we go. Todd beats the tech. So I wanted to come back to the cliff issue for a second, because of course we've got another issue elsewhere with another one of our assets in the district, a couple of miles further west down the coast, where we've got, it's not quite the same situation. It's not a community asset transfer, but where we've got commercial tenants with a lease that's immediately behind a coastal asset of ours that we're now having to spend millions of pounds shoring up to protect somebody else's asset, basically. And I really, really wouldn't want to see us getting into the same situation here. I appreciate it's a slightly different situation insofar as we're considering an asset transfer to a parish council of a fundamentally a community attraction, and it's not it's not like we're talking about a profit generating asset going to a commercial entity. But I'd be concerned and reluctant about seeing any form of asset transfer of Jubilee Gardens without a resolution of how we deal with those cliffs, without the answer being just East Devon bears all the cost. Because to be honest, that's not fair to our ratepayers elsewhere in the district, if we're being totally frank. So that's my tuppence. Otherwise, I have no problems at all with it moving forwards to the next stage.
Okay, thank you very much, Todd. So I can't see any other hands up. Now, obviously, I'm slightly constrained here myself because any report would come back to me to consider. So Tim has outlined. So that recommendation 1 is that AMF notes the reports, offers its thoughts, and I think we've had quite a healthy debate, and some thoughts have gone to officers about forum members' views and parish council views and other councillors' views as part of the consultation process. So I think we could say that recommendation 1 has been done. Recommendation 2, that AMF notes that following completion of this consultation, still ongoing, that in accordance with the procedure, officers will make a recommendation to the portfolio holder for economy and assets, myself, on whether the applicant should be invited to submit a business case. Now, we've had 2 forum members say that they believe that's a worthwhile process and could produce some results for the parish and for East Devon District Council. So I think officers can take that as a positive from item 2. And item 3 is that we note that this application does not progress. Officers will contact the parish council to discuss their proposals and identify whether there is scope for a collaborative approach to achieve some of their objectives set out in the EIO. And I think that's a given. If it doesn't get that far, then obviously there's always other things can be done. So from forum members present, Sam and Todd and myself, are we happy to, if I propose from the chair, that recommendations 1 to 3 are acceptable to us? Are you happy with that approach? Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the officers who participated and contributed. We really appreciate that. And I think that's a positive outcome, and we can move forwards on those recommendations. Thank you very much indeed. So we now go to agenda item 8, a Place and Prosperity team update. Now, I obviously had some notes here that it would be Alison. I don't think Alison is here. So, Andy, are you standing in, or is that for Tim?
It will be me, Chair. Andy can come in if he likes at any point, but Alison has primed me to pick up this report. So it's quite a as is often the case with these team update reports. So yeah, this is the first of 3 team update reports that we're now moving on to in the agenda. I think the report is fairly self-explanatory. We pick up on some of the key projects taking place within that within the Place and Prosperity team. We do, however, particularly for this report, for the Place and Prosperity team, need to be really mindful. A lot of work that they do is commercially sensitive, so that does impact on what can and what can't go into this public report. But if I just sort of highlight a couple of the key points. So in terms of a depot review, the work is largely complete. So as you'll recall, we've been working probably for the last, I'd say 9 or 12 months with external consultants, pulling together proposals on how we can ensure our depot provision moving forward is fit for purpose. And it's not just a reminder to members, it's not just our street scene depots, it's also linking into, for example, any space that Countryside might occupy, but also linking in our recycling centre out at Greendale, so it covers all of it. And it's to set out a sort of a blueprint on what it is we as an authority need moving forward. I can warn you now, it will come with quite hefty price tags. So we are anticipating a final report later this month, with it then coming through, Alison says, to Cabinet in September. I think in reality, with the August recess, it will be sort of, I suspect it will be into the autumn, in all honesty, but over the course of the next couple of months. The next update from Alison was around the drill hall, and in particular the toilet element of that. Members will probably be aware that that is going to Planning Committee tomorrow with an officer recommendation for approval. If planning consent is then granted, that then satisfies the conditions within the agreement for lease, and the natural course of events then follow, with Rockfish still keen to do the necessary building works this winter to ensure that the restaurant already a couple of years late, can open ready for next summer season. Moving on down, I think the feasibility studies, UK SPF feasibility study section is self-explanatory. We're obviously working with Sidmouth Town Council, who themselves are leading on the project in Sidmouth around youth provision, using the SPF funding through the district council. And then in Exmouth, that's a project that we will be leading on ourselves in this current financial year using the existing allocation, which is 35k. We've also, there was a slight underspend elsewhere, so we've managed to link that in. So it's nearer a figure about 45k in Exmouth, and that ties in neatly with the work that we're doing in terms of the placemaking plan. The next item that Alison updates on is the Seaton and Axminster employment sites. And I think it's probably worth also, against that one, just referencing back to Hayne Lane. The committee will be very aware that the report came on Hayne Lane previously. I suppose the obvious question is why the delay with these reports? So I suppose we've gone back to basics a little on them. We've sort of been going around and around with the same issues, which focus on viability to a greater or lesser degree on each of these sites. We've, since the last AMF meeting, we've worked much more closely with economic development colleagues and with planning colleagues. And with Andy now in post as interim director and a dedicated place directorate, I think this now gives, or I say I think this does now give us the opportunity to sort of look at these sites much more sort of holistically, link it back to the council plan and what we've committed to in the council plan, and look at what cross services we can do to make a site that to date hasn't been deliverable. And I suppose one sort of key phrase I want to pick up on, which is included within the council plan, is growth dividend value as a percentage of investment. And if we are going to make any of these sites work, we need to take that much bigger picture. It can't just be down to property viability. We need to consider growth. We need to consider employment. We need to consider business rates. We need to look at that much bigger model. So Andy and I and Jerry and other officers have already, in literally the last couple of weeks since Andy took up post, been having discussions around that. So we have a clear way forward to consider these sites in a very different way, with much more of an emphasis around ECDEV and growth. So yeah, that's in essence. I need you to explain, I suppose, why you've not got those reports back today. So reports will be coming forward, but we have had to go back to the drawing board. Really to make sure that we explore all possible opportunities rather than taking what could be seen as the easier option, but arguably not the best option for East Devon District Council and for our residents and businesses, of putting some of these sites back onto the market and allowing someone else to deliver. So I've done, you might think it's a bit of waffle around that, but hopefully that sort of explains where we are with that. And there will be reports coming forward, and I strongly suspect they will take a slightly different direction than perhaps we've been considering previously. And then the very final update from Alison was on Seaton Morrodunham. And there's a reference there to a report coming to 10th of July Cabinet. That was correct at the time of drafting of this report by Alison, but that date has been put back because we're looking at a couple of different options there. But the report has been drafted and has been passed our executive leadership team. Okay. I think that's all of the projects. So happy on Alison's behalf to take questions, and you'll note from the recommendation that it is merely to note the content of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Tim. Just before I bring in Ian, Andy, obviously I appreciate you and I had a chat about this, particularly the employment issues. and also had a chat with Rob Murray as well. Are you happy? Would you be able to give a few words to the forum just about your take on this in your new role?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So yeah, it's fascinating for me. So for as long as I've can remember, in terms of kind of working in the Southwest, there's always been this challenge of market failure, whereby we know that if small employment units are delivered in our market and coastal towns, for example, they're invariably full. They provide a really important source of local employment. And yet, if you looked at it just in terms of the figures, usually the build cost, doesn't, or outstrips the rent, so to speak, and that's the market failure. So we know there's usually full occupancy. Indeed, our own estate talks to that. So trying to crack that issue and take a very rounded appreciation, as Tim has said, of what is this about return on investment? Are we looking for a particular yield, or are we looking to deliver social value, wider employment opportunities, such that if we left it purely to the market would just go around the kind of West End? It would be big logistics buildings, and clearly we want something that's much more diversified, much more attuned to local need as well. So that's the conversation we've been having. What can we do to craft those proposals in conjunction with the Place and Prosperity Fund as well? And what if we take that, as you say, as Tim says, that wider kind of growth dividend look, including other factors like business rates, what can we make to happen in that space? Does that make sense, Chair?
It does indeed. Thank you very much, Andy. Ian, you first, and then over to Nick.
Thank you, Chair. Fascinating to hear that, the last bit there. I think it's a very good thing. I do suggest that you just lease the land to people and let the businesses put their own buildings up, because at the end of the day, I'm sorry to say it, but they probably will do it cheaper and quicker and deliver it, because I know of people, certainly in Seaton, that are desperate for business, small units that they would happily pay good rent for. UKSPF feasibility study, SIB, I'd like to thank you for the money. We did our survey and it has helped us make decisions, difficult decisions, which we are about to take or have taken now, to knock down our youth club and close it. Well, not close it. Sorry?
I saw that article in the press this morning, and I'm delighted it's on there, and obviously the chance to talk to you about it, because on paper it seems, the sort of things that people would get up in arms about, but obviously there's a rationale behind it.
Well, again, we've had to obviously slowly or carefully word it. We will take some flack. We know we're going to take some flack. We took it on 10 years ago from Devon County Council. It was a building that was put up in the 70s that had a 20-year lifespan, so it's well lived that. It's got asbestos in it. It's got other issues with it, and it's also got to the point where it's just cannot be. It's cost us £45,000 last year to keep it going. We've built up a fund to try and rebuild it. So we're now deciding, after the consultation that we did with the money you gave us, sort of found out whether we want to just put it there or whether we want to spread the youth services throughout the town in different places, answering what the youth actually have said they want. So anyway, that's going on. Question is, the council has now progressed the legal agreements with Rockfish, and should the planning application be approved in due course, the lease for Rockfish will commence. Does that mean that it hasn't commenced yet? And does that mean that if the planning doesn't pass tomorrow, does that mean that this will come back to the council? I'm just a little bit concerned that we have done this deal. As you know, I was never happy about the deal. I remain with the town council that although this is an improvement on the area, it is far from what we could have got, should have got. Again, in our opinion, it's not good for Rockfish. They're going to end up with a restaurant with a 1.3 metre, that's just over 4 foot, wall all the way around it, that they will have a seafood restaurant on the seafront, but without sea view, because at the end of the day, they're going to be sat behind the wall. And with a little bit more thought, we could have put the changing places, extra toilets, etc. down there. And can I also confirm, most importantly, that we have been led to believe and told right from the start that the 2 toilets that Rockfish are supplying will be maintained and run, cleaned, etc. by them going forward. Thank you.
Tim, are you happy to respond to Councillor Byers' questions?
Yeah, thank you. So the first question around the sort of the contractual side. So there's an agreement for lease, which, as you'd expect, well, it's an agreement for lease, not a lease. So it's conditional on various elements, and obviously planning is a key condition, which will hopefully be resolved tomorrow. The second question was in terms of ongoing maintenance, cleaning, etc. And would it be Rockfish? Yes, it will be Rockfish at their expense.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you, Ian, for your questions and for your contribution. Do appreciate that. Nick.
Right. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just really putting a flag up in terms of the depot's review about Camperdown Terrace Depot. In terms of tourism, I think that's a very important site. Excuse me. I'm speaking really in terms of placemaking and the tourism aspect, really, not as a ward member. That site is very well situated in respect of the marina for those businesses that operate in the marine environment. And it's probably the last site in the town that could offer any form of development for those businesses who wish to supply the marine environment, the marine economy, and so on. So I just really want to put out a flag there, really, that's an important site. Clearly, it will go to placemaking in due course. It's a pity the report's been delayed, fair enough, but look forward to reading that. But we need to be very mindful of the opportunities that the Camperdown Terrace site could offer. And that's what I'm going to say today, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Andy, I saw your message. No problem at all. If you need to leave, please just disappear. Yes, well, Nick, you and I have had discussions, and I've had discussions with Tim and with Alison, and I think we all accept that in a place like Exmouth, where it's so constrained in terms of land, you know, arguably any town having a big pad just for a depot of vehicles come and go and they park up and do that. So that's the essence of this depot review, is to look at better use of land that can provide more economic benefit, more tourist benefit, more financial benefit, social benefit than just a concrete pad, because effectively you can build a concrete pad anywhere subject to planning consent. So thank you very much, Nick. Again, you and I have had discussions in fact in Exmouth about this very thing. So thank you for raising that in this forum. So forum members, Sam, Todd, from what you've heard, are there any contributions you'd like to make to this, or are you happy to note the report as provided? And we just, and obviously leave it with me to progress with officers to get these things chugging along with the new focus, as Tim suggested. Yeah, nods there. That's cool. Okay. So agenda item 9, the estates team update, the second of our 3 reports. And this is from Rob. Rob, back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a quick run through of some of the things that we've been dealing with lately in the estates team. So the starting off, obviously demand remains good across our portfolio. I think we've highlighted one area of concern, which is the East Devon Business Centre, where we've got sort of a number of vacant offices, and obviously as a result, sort of falling income. So there's also where we've been using space within there for the council's sort of functions and things like that. So as part of the ongoing accommodation strategy, obviously we'll need to give consideration to that sort of use, and then strategies in terms of improving occupancy at the business centre to sort of improve our income levels on that one. We've got an item on the kiosk at Budley Salterton. This was destroyed in the storms sort of just before Christmas, and it's been quite a challenging one in terms of getting some sort of replacement offering in place. So there's a number of issues there in terms of the planning position, in terms of sort of putting something new in place of the one that was destroyed. Obviously, the very fact that it was destroyed by a storm presents you with a flood risk challenge and such like. So there's issues around that side of it. But also we don't own the site, so it's a leasehold site. So obviously we're working with the landlords in terms of Clinton Devon Estates and the existing tenants to try and find something that's not only workable for us, workable for them, and obviously acceptable in planning terms and landowner terms as well. So quite an array of issues with that one, but it's an ongoing process and something that the team have been doing all they can to try and get a sort of a resolution to. We've successfully marketed the vacant site at Durham Way in Honiton, which is a compound site, which we'd had issues there with a retaining wall which had collapsed and stuff like that. So that's been reinstated and relet. So that's going to be a use for storage space, which hopefully will be a good addition to that little pocket of sites. And we've got vacant units at Riverside Workshops for the first time in quite a while. So so that they're going to be marketed going forwards, and we'd hope to get a reasonable level of interest for those. They're always relatively popular units in terms of what they offer and the location of them. So so yeah, we'll be taking forward a marketing exercise with those two units there. And we've had another category, community asset transfer approach. So this time from the Seaton Cricket and Lawn Tennis Club. So in the same ways we brought the beer one forwards today at a future AMF meeting. Obviously we'll do the same sort of exercise once the consultation process is advanced to a stage where we can seek sort of AMF views on it before taking a recommendation to portfolio holder. And then just to finish off, there's just an update on the long-running sort of workload position. Again, it's relatively positive, which just highlights over the past year there's been quite a significant sort of inroads made in the overall sort of number of cases, which just means people have got more time to focus on getting things done rather than constantly reacting to things. Right, you know, you can actually prioritize work and focus on the things that are important to do. So happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Are there any questions from outside of the forum? Councillor Barlow.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of things. First of all, obviously the East Devon Business Centre, this isn't the first time this has been brought up, that we're in decline there, that we might have issues there. You say consideration will need to be given. When will that start? And you know, when do you hope, or have you already got plans to how you're going to improve on that? And just on the Budley one, again, you're talking about a lease there. Usually, if for no fault of your own, the lease is not able to be carried on, you can just walk away. Are we considering that, or are we still paying rent on that, or what is the situation there, please?
Thank you, Ian. I'll come to Tim. I think on the second point, there's obviously some commercial confidentiality there because there is a tenant. But Tim, do you want to respond to either of those points? And then Sam, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I'll respond to the first point, please, the business centre. If Rob is able to respond at all on the second matter, I'll leave Rob to do so. Business centre, so there's an accommodation strategy that our executive leadership team have asked me to lead on. That is beginning to come to a close now, should be with our executive leadership team in the next month. That accommodation strategy focuses on Exmouth Town Hall and Blackdown House, but it is very much pushing to bringing everything back into those offices and not using the business centre. The business centre was only an interim arrangement last summer. We needed the space then. If we make better use of Blackdown House now, my argument is that we don't need that space. And it goes back to what was the business centre set up for. It was set up for, and funded for, in fact, to help small businesses and providing flexible office space. So it was only an interim measure, and the accommodation review will be in my view, will be the tool that then sort of brings that to an end.
Thank you, Tim. And there's a wider issue there that, of course, you know, since that was developed and it's been there quite a few years, the world of serviced offices and such like has changed. The world of work's changed. So taking your point, Councillor Barlow, yeah, I think this is in the interim, we keep on, pushing the accommodation. If people want it, we can negotiate with them. But in the long term, I think there has to be a review, and this is what our asset group is looking at. Is the assets we have, are they making money? Are they losing money? And is there a future for them? And then we'll discuss that at a granular level when we do. Rob, are you able to come back on the second point?
So in terms of the Budley site, so our leasehold interest is much wider than just the kiosk site. So obviously it's the whole beach essentially. So we probably wouldn't walk away from our leasehold interests, but it's in terms of we're trying to work with the existing tenant with a view to try and have some sort of provision there. Locally, it seems that there is demand for an offering in that sort of location. So it's weighing up the options, looking at whether there's any potential alternatives, and what sort of restraints there might be in terms of planning and things like that we need to factor in. Does it have to be seasonal? Is it something that we're going to need to have something more robust there? What's really going to work, rather than just kind of walking away from it and saying, well, that's it, it's gone. Type of, we're trying to explore every avenue before we if that is the ultimate, then that's the ultimate. But the bottom line, we're trying to find an alternative because there does seem to be good demand locally for that provision in that sort of location. Is that okay?
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate that. Sam, over to you.
Thanks. Apologies to Tim, I got distracted during the answer about East Devon Business Centre. So if you've touched on this, tell me. Just picking up on that point around the office space utilisation. I understand in Exeter, I appreciate it's a different market, that grossly Exeter is oversubscribed, but it's looking at the right type of office space. I don't know if a similar exercise has been done looking at Honiton and East Devon. Is it more there isn't a demand for office space, or is it there is the demand, it's just not the type of office space we're offering?
Tim?
Yeah, John, I just need to be slightly mindful in my response that this is obviously a public meeting, but I think what I can say is that across, so we've seen in the last year or two our housing service move much more into Blackdown House. So whilst we still have a reception facility during certain hours at Exmouth Town Hall, and we still have key staff at Exmouth to respond to members of the public when they come in, a lot of those sort of housing back office functions are now based in Blackdown House. So that has then created a scenario whereby we have lots of vacant space at Exmouth Town Hall, but it has also created a situation whereby we have a real shortage of space at Blackdown House. But it is more around how we use the space, bearing in mind initially, if you go back to pre-COVID, we had more than enough office space for everyone. And most people, it seems bizarre talking about it now, most people were coming in 4, if not 5 days a week. So the space is there. It's just how we use the space. And I'm looking at, for example, utilising hot desking arrangements and similar, and just looking at how we can make best use of space, rather than, for example, in Blackdown House, having a team who sit in a particular place in the building who might be in 1 or 2 days a week, and then for the other 3 days a week, that space sitting largely empty. So it's about how we use the space, Councillor Hawkins.
Is that okay, Sam?
Yes, great, thanks.
I think it echoes to other reports that you and I have seen for other buildings elsewhere in the district, primarily to the west, in that they're having to assess the market, because the market dictates. The market doesn't want to rent the space, then you either change the space, the layout, the services, or you take some other measures. So thank you for that. I can't see any other hands up. Todd, anything you want to add on this? No? Okay. Well, in that case, I'll propose from the chair that we note the report. Thank you very much indeed, Rob, for that, and to your colleague. And we then move to agenda item 10, the property and FM team update. Is George with us? He is. Hello. Morning.
Oh, hello.
Morning.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning. Good morning, all. Thank you. This report is the usual report that we put in front of the forum. It's a simple report. It's just an update on what we've been up to. This one is a little bit longer because I think we had we didn't report in the last forum, or the last forum was cancelled. So we're covering about 6 months worth of work. So you can see over there, it is quite a bit of data from basically the work we've been doing. So the first part of the report deals with plan and compliance. Okay, then item 4 goes into the reactive work. Okay, and basically further down we just update on the capital work that we've been doing. Okay, there is obviously some work that we've included here in terms of the capital work. We're now reporting on the toilets and also on the decarbonisation as well, works as well. In terms of the main thing for the decarbonisation, we put another bid in back in when was that? I think it was late April, early June, to get some funding to appoint basically consultants to help us with figuring out what we need to do. So that was a bid for about £300,000. Okay, and we are waiting to hear the results of that in July. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Also, at the very end, I've got a section over there about cost. Okay, the budget, how we've spent it, and I also included a comparison to last year's budget as well. So basically, that covers 2022-23 and 2023-24. So you could see over there that our budget is not covering what we're spending, and then is basically the rate at what we're spending is a lot higher than the rate as the budget is going up, basically. So that's pretty much all there. Again, the same sort of message. It's usually LED properties where we spend most of the money, okay? But also toilets, okay? So those are the really big two spenders in our budget, okay? So that's pretty much the report over there. If you have any questions, I will be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. Just before I do put a question to you, if I may, Councillor Collins, good morning. Nice to see you. Have you any declarations you need to make? I appreciate we're pretty much at the end of the meeting. I can see you on the screen, but have you any declarations you want to make, Councillor Collins?
No.
No, thank you.
Sorry, I'm late.
No problem at all. Can I just say, if I may, and it's a public meeting, that's a very, very, very good beard. But I'm sure I saw you 2 days ago and you were clean shaven. That's quite an incredible achievement. Well done. So welcome anyway to the meeting. So yeah, George, on page 48, you do obviously mention that maintenance spend at public toilets is almost twice that budgeted for. Is there a particular reason why there's been this spike in toilet maintenance costs? Is it vandalism? Is it just ongoing things, cost, inflation, or?
It's just ongoing cost, really. We have a situation where some of for example, the units that are they do the hand wash, the soap dispensing, and also the drying. They are Moorgate units, and these are pretty much obsolete now. Okay, so we've had to spend some money because the Moorgate are refusing now to continue maintaining them because they cannot. And basically what they're trying to do, they're trying to sell us new units, but we don't want to buy them because we're about to basically redo all the toilets, and then we will have new units over there. So we don't really want to invest that money. So what we've been doing, we've been changing those into just a standard hand wash basins with a separate hand dryer. So, and that, of course, it's a lot less than replacing the unit, but still it is a cost. And things like that it is basically because the toilets are basically old and knackered, really. Okay, so we having to spend more money repairing them and keeping them going, basically.
Thank you. Technical maintenance turn. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, it's also interesting to see that Exmouth Town Hall and Blackdown House takes up you say that toilets are the bigger ones, but the two of them is actually larger than the public toilets. And I appreciate there are people working out of there, but not as many people that probably use the toilets. Anyway, other things. So, Cibber Swimming Pool, the money that you you said you were applying on this grant, £300,000, is that for the same decarbonisation of the swimming pools that the council's already given you the money for, or got there in case we don't get this grant? And sorry,
it is roughly for the same money. So the idea is that we would use that money if we win it, okay, instead of the budget from the environment budget. Okay, so that's what we plan to do. Okay, so if we get the budget, which is the budget from the bid, which is slightly more, okay, we will basically use that money instead of the budget that has already been allocated.
Okay, and I just wonder if that puts a slight disadvantage. I've had this argument before when we put in for grants and things. If the people that are doing the grants look at it and go, well, you've already got the money earmarked, we'll give it to someone who hasn't got that money. But that's another thing. And also, finally, Sidmouth Ham West car park changing places only, aborted, planning application refused. Does that mean that's it, finished? You're not going to start looking at anything else, or not?
Well, at the moment, I haven't been instructed to look at anything else. So it's pretty much that's pretty much it.
Ian, I'm just going to bring Tim on that.
Good.
Thank you. Yeah, George is right in that he's not been instructed yet to look at anything else on that site. I had a good conversation with Chris Holland, the clerk of the Town Council, at the end of last week. So, scenario is, we have talked previously about two toilet cubicles somewhere within that vicinity. That was going to have been included in phase 1 if it had gone in alongside the adult changing places facility. On the basis that the planning didn't get granted, that project has now been removed from phase 1. However, there is still the appetite by the district council to provide 2 additional cubicles somewhere in that locality. Now, either in exactly that same location or in another location around that building. The flexibility, there is that much greater flexibility now without the adult changing places facility. We also then need to factor it in with Market Square building and the number of cubicles there, and whether the best solution for the town is to have more at Market Square or to have them split across both sides. But I've started that discussion with the clerk last week. So it isn't, so I suppose to answer your question, Councillor Barlow, it's not the end of it. It is the end of a adult changing places facility because we had funding for that, but it's not the end of the 2 cubicles. However, they are not in phase 1 now, so they will be considered in a subsequent phase. And the clerk and I have committed to sort of having an ongoing discussion on what that solution might be. Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
You say that we're not getting a change in places now. It's just because we've just run out of time.
I believe we've had to hand the money back. Ian.
Yeah, we have to return the money back. Yeah.
The funding required that the change in place facility went in this calendar year. So yeah, so we've had to notify DLUC that that money is being returned to them.
Yeah.
But there is an opportunity, perhaps, for all district councils coming later this or later next month, when perhaps all councils will get some more funding for facilities such as toilets and changing places. We don't know. Depends what happens after the fly.
Could I ask just again? I know this was left very late, and again, working with the town council would have made this better, more possible, if it had happened perhaps a little bit earlier, rather than being left to the last minute where, again, you know, look, you put in an application, everyone said we didn't like it down there, and then the planning committee, and I wasn't allowed to speak on it, refused it. So, you know, I just think that, again, it's a wasted opportunity that could have been, should have been, perhaps with a little bit more communication, better communication, allowed and been able to be built.
I think, if I may, Ian, sorry, I think on that, Ian, I think that's a little bit unfair, because there was discussion. There was discussion between this authority and another authority, and that I have to on this one say that's your personal viewpoint, and defend East Devon in that respect. But everyone will have a view on this. Sorry, I didn't hear who the person was who wanted to respond.
That was me. I wanted to respond along those lines, basically. So yeah, it is frustrating because we emailed before the planning application went live. We emailed the ward members, okay, and it was about a month before the planning application went live, and we had no response whatsoever. We also met with the town council and we went through the proposals after the application was put in, and there was obviously some concerns, and we changed the proposals to consider those comments, okay. And the proposal that we ended up with was a quite considerate proposal, okay, for the site and for basically the provision over there. And it was quite frustrating. I couldn't be in the planning committee, but it was quite frustrating to hear that the conversations around in the planning committee, it wasn't really related to the latest proposal, you know. So, you know, they were talking about something that it was completely it was based on the first proposal rather than the revised proposal that we finally end up with. And it was frustrating to see that there were still people talking about the original proposal, which had nothing to do. And the other issue I have with this is that planning officers who have a urban planning qualification, they propose the proposals for approval, and then members go and basically they turn it down. How is that?
George, sorry, can I just come in, please? So yeah, I suppose Councillor Bartlett and members generally, yeah, very, very frustrating. But we are where we are. What I would say is that, or what I do say is that we dealt with the town council and our ward members in Sidmouth in exactly the same way that we did in each of our other phase 1 sites across the district. And we have not had these same issues in other towns. I appreciate that Sidmouth was a more complex site because you were creating something where there wasn't something before. Our other sites, you already have something and you're in effect replacing that with something that will be nicer and provide a better service. This is the phase 1 rollout. Clearly, as we move on to the phase 2 and subsequent rollouts, we will look back at how we've run phase 1 and whether there are any learnings. and maybe we do need to have different discussions with town councils directly rather than just for our own ward members, and we can consider all that in the fullness of time. But in terms of how we dealt with Sidmouth, it wasn't exactly the same way that we dealt with all of the other towns, and as I said, we did consult with our ward members prior to putting in the applications, as we did with all of the other towns. So I think we are where we are, but let's see whether there are any sort of wider learnings in terms of subsequent phases.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the clarity. Obviously, there'll be ongoing discussions with Sidmouth Town Council and ward members about providing something. You know, because that's all we're after, is providing amenity. Nick, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just a very quick one from me. Section 2.4 on the report, George, you've listed some works on the Exmouth Ocean Centre, some of which are stated to be to do with storm damage, and there's other works there as well, like gutters and doors and concrete slabs. Was that also related to the storm damage, or is that just simply stuff that's worn out?
Which property was that?
So Exmouth Ocean, your table on section 2.4.
Yeah, over there we've completed some work that were related to the storm damage. Okay, the gutter relining wasn't related to the storm damage. Okay, that was an ongoing issue that we had, which basically the building was designed with the gutter that couldn't take the volume of water that we have. So what we did, we relined the gutter and then expanded a little bit so it can cope better with the volume. And also we've done some repairs there in the terrace. Okay, and that wasn't storm related at all, and a door as well that we replaced over there, so that wasn't storm related at all. So just one item that was storm related, basically.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Thank you, Chair.
More than welcome, Nick. Thank you, and thank you, George. Members of Forum, Sam, Todd, anything else you want to tease out of this, or any questions you want to ask?
Just a quick one, if I may, Chair.
Of course.
George, did you say then regarding Ocean that the gutters that were on the building as designed were insufficient to cope with the volume of rainwater coming off the roofs?
Yes, there was a gutter which is in a valley, and this usually happens. And then basically what should happen is that valley needs to be clear, okay, constantly. Okay, and at the back of that building, we have really tall trees over there. The responsibility of clearing that valley lies with LED. Okay, and basically what happens is, because they are really tall trees at the back, the valleys they get filled up very, very quickly. But it is not a very accessible place either. So it is a combination of that. Okay, so but yes, the outlet is smaller than I would have liked it. Okay, probably at the time when it was designed, we didn't have the volumes of water that we're getting now. We're getting really heavy downpours now, you know, in the last few years. So it does kind of overwhelm the whole design, basically. Okay, so I wouldn't say that it was a design fault. Okay.
Is that okay, Todd?
I'll reserve further comment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
I'll bore you with one of my analogies. A commercial building I used to work in, which was built commercially, you know, with great big, huge hoppers and gutters and profiles. There was a particular bit of gutter that always overflowed, and when we actually went up there and had a look at it, for some reason they had made it tiny. It was essentially like a residential house, and it was just, that's what's going to happen. Huge volumes of water can't get through a hole very quick. It's going to overflow. It's just the way it is. So thank you, George, for that report. And again, for the continuing work you're doing. I see no other hands up. So from the chair, I'll propose that we note the report as per the recommendation. Are all members happy with that of the forum? Yeah. Okay. So in that sense, then I believe we have reached the end of our agenda. Just check here. Yes. So in which case, and that brings our meeting to an end. I'd like to thank everyone, officers and forum members and councillors, for your attendance, and indeed any members of the public watching online on a Monday morning. I hope you enjoyed it. Can I remind all those present that the sporting officer will confirm when this meeting is no longer being streamed, and until then your comments will be live to the public, so please mind your language up to the point where we get confirmation from Debbie